Clara stood outside the old farmhouse with her hands trembling slightly as she looked over the dry fields stretching far across the land. The wind pushed dust into the air, and every broken fence post reminded her of the same painful truth she carried inside her chest. Nothing was left. Not her father, not the strong old farm he worked for years, not the hopes she had whispered into the fields every morning. Everything felt empty, silent, and too heavy for her heart to carry alone. When she had cried earlier that morning, no one had heard her except the 10 women living with her on the farm. They were all inside the house now, waiting quietly like they did every day, hoping Clara would somehow come up with a miracle. For months, they had depended on her. For months, she had stood strong for them, preparing meals, handling the little livestock left, patching roofs, and checking the water supply. But today, she finally felt the truth sink in. She whispered to herself, "You all left me nothing," repeating the words she had said when a bank man visited 2 days earlier. The memory still hurt her. She had begged for more time, but he had given her the same cold answer: "Pay what is owed or the farm will be taken." As she wiped her tears with the back of her hand, she heard the distant sound of hooves on the dirt path. She looked up, expecting maybe someone from the town or another man from the bank. Instead, she saw a tall, calm cowboy riding toward the farm on a brown horse. Dust rose with each step the animal took. Clara narrowed her eyes, trying to remember his face. She did not know him, but something about him seemed familiar, as if she had seen him in old stories her father told. The cowboy slowed down when he reached the gate and tipped his hat politely. "Ma'am," he said, his voice steady, neither loud nor demanding. "Name's Ethan Cole. I was told your father once lived here." Clara stiffened. Just hearing mention of her father made her eyes burn. She stepped closer and nodded gently. "Yes, he passed away. Months ago." Ethan's expression softened. "I'm sorry for your loss. He wrote me a letter long back asking me to visit if things ever went bad. I didn't expect to be too late." Clara blinked in surprise. She hadn't known her father sent such a letter to anyone. He was a private man, rarely asked for help. "A letter? To you? Why?" Ethan dismounted slowly, tying his horse to the post that leaned dangerously to one side. "We worked together once. Years ago. He trusted me. Said if his daughter ever needed someone to check on the farm, I should come." Clara crossed her arms, feeling a mix of confusion, hope, and doubt. She didn't want to trust easily anymore. Too many people had come with kind smiles only to offer unfair deals later. "Well," she said quietly, "you can see the farm is barely standing. There's nothing much left to check." Ethan looked around calmly, observing the broken barn door, the dry fields, the dusty porch, and the silent house where the 10 women waited. "There's still people here," he said gently. "People matter more than land." His words hit Clara unexpectedly. She swallowed hard, trying to stay strong. "It's not just me," she admitted, her voice cracking. "There are 10 women here, some widows, some with nowhere to go, some who arrived with nothing but fear in their eyes. They trusted my father. They trusted me. Now everything is slipping away." Ethan nodded slowly. "Then I'll stay for a while. Let me help." Clara almost laughed at the idea. One man helping against months of damage and debt? It sounded impossible. But the tiredness in her bones made her whisper, "If you want to look around, fine. But there isn't much you can do." She led him toward the house. Inside, the women stayed close together, whispering among themselves. When Clara stepped in with the cowboy behind her, all eyes turned to them. The room was filled with a quiet kind of fear, the fear of not knowing what tomorrow would bring. "This is Ethan," Clara said, trying to keep her voice steady. "He knew my father." The women greeted him politely but carefully. They had seen many strangers in the past months, most of them offering empty promises or trying to take advantage of their situation. Ethan, however, didn't act like a man with hidden motives. He simply laid his hat on the table and said, "I won't trouble anyone. I just want to help where help is needed." That afternoon, Ethan walked around the farm, checking every corner. He examined the fences first and spent a long time studying the barn structure. He checked the well pump and found it barely working. He noticed the henhouse door was broken, letting wild animals steal eggs at night. Clara followed him a few steps behind, watching him think quietly. He didn't criticize or ask questions that made her feel small. Instead, he made simple remarks like, "This board can be replaced," or "This wall can be mended," or "The well needs tightening here." At one point, Ethan kneeled beside the pump, wiping dust with his hand. "How long has the water flow been weak?" he asked gently. Clara sighed. 2 months. I tried to fix it but didn't know how." Ethan nodded. "I can fix this. It'll take a few hours." She stared at him in disbelief. No one from town even tried to help without asking for money first. And here was a stranger, someone who didn't owe her anything, offering small bits of hope without making a show of it. Later, when the sun dropped behind the hills, Ethan returned to the house with Clara. The women prepared a simple meal, just soup and bread, but it felt warm after such a long, tiring day. Ethan sat quietly at the table, thanking them for the food. The women studied him closely, whispering about his calm nature and direct manner. After dinner, Clara stepped outside to breathe fresh air. She watched the dim lights inside the house reflect off the windows. The night breeze felt cool, but also carried the weight of her responsibilities. Could a single cowboy really change anything? Was her father right to trust him? Ethan joined her outside, standing a respectful distance away. "Tomorrow I'll start with the fences," he said. "Then the well. Little by little things can improve." Clara looked at the sky instead of him. "You don't understand," she whispered. "The bank wants the land. They don't care if 10 women have nowhere to go. They don't care if the farm collapses. They gave me a week, and without money, I have nothing to offer." Ethan's voice remained calm. "Then let me help you until that time comes. You shouldn't face all this alone." Clara wanted to argue, but something inside her finally broke. All her hidden fears, her unspoken pain, her sleepless nights came crashing into her heart. She covered her face with her hands and cried, "You all left me nothing." The words echoed softly in the night air. Ethan didn't touch her or try to force comfort. He simply stood beside her, letting her cry freely, giving her space to release what she had been holding for too long. After a moment, he said softly, "You still have people who depend on you. You haven't lost everything." Clara lowered her hands slowly and looked at him with tired eyes. "Why are you being kind to us? What do you want from this place?" Ethan met her gaze, steady and honest. "Your father trusted me. And I don't turn my back on trust. That's all." His words were simple, but they sank deeply into Clara's heart. She didn't fully trust him yet, but for the first time in many months, she felt a small spark of hope. Not strong, not bright, but enough to hold on to. Later that night, when everyone had gone to sleep, Clara sat alone by the window, watching Ethan settle in the small room near the porch. He had brought nothing but a saddlebag and a quiet determination. She wondered what kind of man would come all the way for a promise made years ago. She wondered if her father had known she would need someone like him one day. Before she closed her eyes, she whispered to herself, "Maybe he came at the right time." And for the first time in months, she felt just a little less alone. The next morning began with the soft sound of roosters and the gentle glow of sunlight slipping through the cracked windows. Clara woke earlier than usual, her mind already filled with the long list of tasks that never seemed to end. But today felt different. She wasn't sure why. Maybe it was because Ethan had arrived. Maybe because someone else finally stood on the same land with the same worry. Maybe because, for the first time in months, she didn't feel like the only person trying to hold the entire farm together. When she stepped outside, she found Ethan already awake. He was standing near the broken fence, rolling up his sleeves and checking the wood as if he had worked there for years. Clara stopped a few steps behind him and watched quietly. There was something calming about the way he moved. No rush, no frustration, no complaints. He studied problems with patience, not fear. She wondered how someone could stay so steady even when everything around them was falling apart. "You're up early," she said gently. Ethan glanced back with a small nod. "Long day ahead. Thought I'd start before the sun gets too strong." Clara walked closer, feeling a shy awkwardness she hadn't felt in years. She wasn't used to sharing responsibility. "You don't have to do everything at once. The fences can wait." Ethan shook his head slightly. "The animals will wander if the fences aren't fixed. And if they run off, you'll lose more than you can afford to lose." Clara sighed softly. He was right. Inside the house, the 10 women were slowly waking. Some prepared the kitchen fire, others swept the floor, and a few whispered to each other about the cowboy. They wondered who he was, why he was helping, and whether they could trust him. Fear had made them careful, but hope made them curious. After breakfast, Ethan gathered them outside and spoke in a steady, respectful voice. "This farm can work again, but not if one person tries to do everything. We'll need to share tasks and make sure no one gets overwhelmed." The women looked at each other nervously. They were used to doing chores, but not used to planning or working as a structured group. Most of them had come from difficult situations: loss, fear, loneliness. They were still learning how to trust themselves again, let alone someone new. Clara watched their faces and knew they needed encouragement. She stepped forward and said softly, "He's right. We can't fix everything alone, but together, maybe we can make things better." The women slowly nodded. One of the older widows, Mrs. Hale, spoke first. "What do you want us to do?" Ethan smiled politely. "Nothing too hard. Some can help with cooking and cleaning. Some can help gather eggs. A few can watch the children. And if anyone is strong enough, they can help carry light tools." 2 of the women exchanged uncertain whispers. They weren't used to a man speaking to them without arrogance. But Ethan didn't treat anyone like they were weak or useless. He gave work that matched each person's ability. By midday, the farm began to look different. The hens clucked peacefully in their cleaned coop. The small garden area was cleared of weeds. The young girls carried small buckets of water from the well, giggling as water splashed on their feet. Mrs. Hale baked bread that filled the house with warm, comforting smells. And Ethan worked outside, replacing old wood on the fences with strong new boards he shaped himself. Clara found herself watching him more than she intended, not because she admired him, but because she couldn't understand why he worked so hard for a place he didn't own. Every time she walked outside to check on something, Ethan was already fixing the next problem. He didn't ask for thanks. He didn't ask for explanations. He simply repaired what needed repair step by step with quiet determination. At one point, Clara brought him a cup of water. He paused long enough to drink half of it, then handed the cup back gently. "Thank you," he said simply. "You work too much," Clara said. "So do you," Ethan replied calmly. She didn't argue because she knew he was right. Later in the afternoon, as Ethan repaired the barn door, 2 of the women, Sarah and May, sisters who had been abandoned by a traveling man, approached Clara with worried expressions. "Clara," Sarah whispered, "can we trust him? What if he wants something later?" Clara sighed. She had wondered the same thing. "I don't know yet, but he hasn't asked for anything. Not once." May bit her lip. "Men from town. They always wanted something. Clara placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. He's not like them. At least, he hasn't shown any sign. The women nodded slowly, comforted, but still cautious. By evening, the first big improvement happened. The well pump suddenly gave a strong, clean burst of water after Ethan tightened the rusted bolts and cleared the pipes. The women cheered, clapped, and laughed with joy. It was the first time in months that something on the farm had worked properly. Clara almost felt like crying again, but this time the tears were warm, not painful. Ethan stood near the pump, wiping sweat from his forehead. "It'll hold for now," he said, "but it'll need a better pipe soon." The women thanked him over and over. One of the younger ones, Anna, said in a shy voice, "You fixed what no one else would even try to fix." Ethan simply smiled. Sometimes things just need a little care. That night the meal felt different. The house was filled with soft talking, light laughter, and the comforting smell of newly baked bread. Clara sat at the end of the table, watching everyone interact. She saw how the women relaxed slightly around Ethan. They no longer looked at him with fear, but with quiet interest. He didn't try to take charge of their conversations. He didn't seek attention. He listened more than he spoke. After dinner, Clara and Ethan stood near the porch again, looking at the sky slowly darkening with shades of purple and silver. Fireflies danced across the field, glowing softly in the warm night air. The sound of crickets filled the silence around them. "You did a lot today," Clara said, her voice gentle. Ethan shrugged slightly. "There was a lot to do. You fixed the well. You repaired fences. You helped the women. That's more than anyone has done for us in a long time." Ethan looked out over the fields. "Your father did a lot for people, too. Maybe I'm just returning the kindness he once showed me." Clara felt a soft ache in her heart. "Did he tell you what to do if things went wrong?" "No," Ethan said, shaking his head. "He just asked me to come if he ever couldn't take care of the farm himself. He didn't say how to fix anything. He trusted you would know what to do." Clara laughed weakly. "I don't. I'm trying, but everything is falling apart." "Not everything," Ethan replied. "The people here still believe in you." Clara looked back at the house where the women were cleaning up, smiling and talking softly. She realized he was right. They had stayed with her even when the farm was failing. They had trusted her long before she trusted herself. Just then, the youngest girl, Lily, ran out carrying a small blanket. "Clara, look, I washed it myself today," she said proudly. Clara knelt down to praise her. "You did such a good job." Lily smiled shyly at Ethan, then hurried back inside. Ethan watched the girl with a thoughtful expression. "They're strong," he said. "Stronger than they think." "So are you," Clara murmured before she could stop herself. Ethan glanced at her but said nothing, though she noticed a faint warmth in his expression. She felt her cheeks heat up a little and quickly looked away. As the night grew cooler, Clara folded her arms and whispered, "Do you think we can save this place?" Ethan answered without hesitation. "Yes, but not alone. You, me, and all the women. We'll need to work together." Clara nodded slowly. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe the farm had a chance. She wanted to believe that tomorrow would not be another day filled with fear. "Thank you, Ethan," she said softly, "for being here." He nodded. "I'll be here as long as I'm needed." Clara felt a gentle warmth inside her chest, something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. And as she looked at the dark fields sprinkled with fireflies, she finally allowed herself to imagine a future where the farm wasn't falling apart, but slowly rising again. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring. She didn't know what the bank would do, but she knew one thing for sure. She wasn't alone anymore. And that small truth was enough to let her sleep with a calmer heart that night, knowing that morning would come with new strength. because someone else was willing to share the weight she had carried for too long. The morning sun rose slowly over the fields, painting the sky with shades of pale gold. Clara woke with a strange feeling inside her, a quiet mixture of nervousness and hope. She had grown used to waking in fear, thinking about debts, broken tools, and hungry mouths, but today felt different. Something in the air felt lighter, almost safe. She got dressed quickly and stepped outside. Ethan was already awake, sitting on the porch with a cup of warm water in his hands. He nodded politely when he saw her. "Morning, Clara." "Morning," she replied, trying not to show the small smile forming on her face. His presence was steadying, like a strong fence standing against the wind. Inside the house, the women were preparing breakfast. They moved differently now, with purpose instead of worry. They had slept better, too. Clara could see it in their eyes. The farm was not fixed yet, but the fear that once controlled every corner of the house had started to loosen its grip. After breakfast, Ethan went outside to inspect the barn again. Clara followed him a few minutes later, holding a small notebook where she wrote tasks and reminders. She wasn't sure if the tasks on the list were even possible anymore, but at least writing them helped her feel organized. Ethan was standing near the barn door when Clara approached. "This door won't last long," he said. "It needs new hinges." Clara nodded. "I can help you find some old ones in the storage shed." "Good idea," Ethan replied. As they walked to the shed, Clara noticed how comfortable the silence between them had become. He didn't force conversation, and she didn't feel pressured to fill the quiet. It was peaceful, like walking beside a steady stream. Inside the shed, Clara found a small wooden box filled with old metal parts, screws, and hinges. She held it up proudly. "Here. My father kept everything. He said even broken things could be useful one day." Ethan smiled softly. "Your father was right." The words touched her. She set the box down and leaned against the wall, taking a deep breath. She wanted to ask Ethan more about the letter her father sent him, but something held her back. She didn't want to appear desperate for answers, but the question still weighed on her mind. "Ethan," she finally said, "how well did you know my father?" Ethan paused, choosing his words carefully. "We worked together for 2 years. He helped me when I was young and didn't have much. He was a good man, fair, honest. He talked about you often." Clara blinked in surprise. "He did?" "Yes," Ethan replied. "He said you were strong, that you had a brave heart even when life got hard." Clara looked down, her throat tightening. "Sometimes I don't feel strong." "That's because you carry too much alone," Ethan said. "Even the strongest person breaks when they carry the whole world on their shoulders." Clara felt her eyes sting, but she brushed the feeling away. "Thank you," she whispered. They returned to the barn and began working on the door. Ethan hammered gently, shaping the metal hinges into place. Clara held the boards steady for him. For a moment, it felt like the farm was theirs alone, 2 people fixing something that mattered to both of them. But the calm afternoon was interrupted when 2 men on horses appeared at the gate. Their suits, dusty boots, and cold eyes made Clara's heart sink. The bank. They dismounted and walked toward the house with stiff shoulders and sharp expressions. Clara stepped forward, trying to appear strong. "You were just here a few days ago. I thought—" The taller man cut her off. "We don't have time to wait." "Miss Clara, if the debt isn't paid by the end of the week, the property will be taken. All of it." The women inside the house peeked through the windows, fear returning to their faces like a dark cloud rolling across the sky. Clara swallowed hard. "I told you I need time. We're trying to make things better." "That's not our concern," the man said coldly. "We're here to warn you. Nothing more." Ethan stepped closer, placing himself slightly between Clara and the men. His face stayed calm, but there was a quiet strength in his eyes. You don't need to threaten her. She understands her situation. The banker glanced at Ethan with curiosity. And you are? A friend of the family, Ethan replied simply. Well, friend or not, the farm is nearly ours, the man said. We'll return in 6 days. As they mounted their horses to leave, Clara felt her strength crumble. The moment they were out of sight, she turned away from Ethan, walked behind the barn, and let the tears fall silently. She tried to hold them back, but the weight was too much. She pressed her hands against her face, shaking softly. Ethan waited a moment before approaching. He didn't rush to comfort her. Instead, he stood close enough for her to feel his presence, but far enough to give her space. When she finally spoke, her voice cracked. They will take everything. They will take the home my father built. They will take the only place these women have. What am I supposed to do, Ethan? How am I supposed to save all this? Ethan exhaled slowly. Clara, there's something you should know. She looked up, confused and tired. Ethan reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded, worn letter. Your father wanted me to give this to you if the time ever came. Clara stared at the letter with disbelief. Her hands trembled as she took it. She recognized her father's handwriting instantly. Carefully, she unfolded the paper. The words felt like hearing his voice again. My dear Clara, if this letter reaches you, it means I am no longer by your side, and the farm may be in trouble. I'm sorry I couldn't stay long enough to protect you. But I trust Ethan. If he stands there with this letter in his hand, it means he kept his promise. He will help you when I no longer can. Don't push him away. Don't carry everything alone. Let him stand with you. You are stronger than you think, but even the strongest people need someone beside them. Your loving father. Clara covered her mouth, overwhelmed. The tears she tried to hold poured freely now. She pressed the letter to her heart and cried, not from fear this time, but from a deep kind of sadness she had kept buried too long. Ethan stepped closer, still patient. I didn't show it earlier because I didn't want you to feel forced to trust me. I wanted you to see that I came here because I care, not because a letter told me to. Clara looked at him through blurry eyes. Why? Why would you keep such a promise for so long? Because your father saved me once, Ethan said quietly. He gave me work, food, a roof, and he treated me with respect when no one else did. I owe him more than I can ever repay. Clara took a deep breath, letting the words settle into her heart. She looked at the women watching from the doorway. Their faces showed fear, hope, worry, and trust all mixed together. What do we do now? She asked softly. Ethan met her eyes with quiet certainty. We fight for this place, and we don't give up. But the debt, I have savings, Ethan said gently. Enough to clear what is owed. Clara froze. Ethan, that's your money. Your life. This farm needs it more than I do, he replied, and so do all of you. Clara's breath caught. She had never known such kindness from anyone. The weight she carried for months suddenly felt lighter, not gone but shared. The women slowly stepped outside, forming a small circle around Clara and Ethan. They whispered in amazement when they heard what Ethan had offered. Mrs. Hale placed her hand on Clara's shoulder. Child, maybe your father sent him for this very reason. Clara looked at Ethan, unsure whether to cry again or laugh with relief. But the bank's threat still echoed in her mind. They had 6 days. 6 days to decide the future of the farm, the women, and everything her father built. She closed her eyes, took a steady breath, and whispered, Ethan, thank you. But I don't want you to lose everything because of us. Ethan shook his head. Saving this place isn't losing. It's doing what's right. Clara felt something shift inside her, a trust that she hadn't felt toward anyone in years. She looked around at the fields, the house, the barn, the women, and then back at Ethan. She knew that the next part of their journey would not be easy, but for the first time since her father died, she didn't feel afraid of tomorrow. She had help. She had support. She had someone who stood beside her, not behind her. And that changed everything. The sun had barely risen when Clara stepped outside the next morning, but the farm was already filled with movement. The women were awake earlier than usual, their steps loud with purpose. They didn't need anyone to tell them what was at stake. The bank had given them only 6 days, and every hour suddenly felt important. Clara walked across the porch and saw Ethan standing near the pasture, tightening the rope gate. He looked calm, but she could see a quiet determination in his eyes. It struck her again how strange it was that a man who owed her nothing had chosen to carry so much on his shoulders. When he noticed her walking toward him, he nodded gently. "Morning, Clara." "Morning," she replied, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "You didn't sleep much, did you?" "Had a lot on my mind," Ethan admitted. "Wanted to plan out what needs to be done if we're going to fix the place for real." Clara gave a soft smile. "You sound like someone who's already part of the farm." Ethan looked out over the quiet fields. "Maybe I am." The morning air was cool and filled with the smell of fresh earth. The women had gathered near the barn, ready for whatever tasks needed to be done. Clara walked toward them, feeling a sense of unity she hadn't felt in months. It was as if everyone understood that this wasn't just a farm. It was their home, their safety, the place that held the last pieces of their past and all the fragile threads of their future. Ethan called everyone together and explained what they needed to focus on. "We can't change the bank's mind," he said, "but we can show them this place still has value. If the land looks cared for, if the repairs are made, it will help. And if nothing else, it gives all of us hope while I work on solving the debt." His voice was steady, and the women listened closely, trusting him the way they had begun trusting Clara again. Clara watched as Ethan organized tasks, guiding gently, never commanding. He treated each woman with respect, giving them responsibilities that matched their strength. When one woman stepped back nervously, he reassured her. When another volunteered to help with heavy tasks, he made sure she didn't strain herself. His leadership wasn't loud or forceful. It was quiet, steady, and kind. Throughout the day, Clara worked beside him. They repaired the roof together, replaced missing shingles, and cleaned out the barn that smelled of dust and old hay. The women swept inside the house, washed blankets, and prepared food for everyone. Even the young girls carried small buckets of water and giggled as they ran across the yard. By noon, the farm looked different, not perfect, but alive. Clara wiped sweat from her forehead. "I can't believe how much we fixed today." Ethan tilted his hat back. "This farm has been waiting for someone to fight for it. That's what we're doing." Clara felt her chest warm at his words. For months, she had felt trapped under fear, but now each repaired board and each cleaned corner felt like a victory. That afternoon, a soft breeze swept through the yard, carrying the smell of warm earth and clean hay. Clara sat under the shade of a tree for a moment, resting her tired hands. She watched the women work together, laughing softly, helping one another in ways they had forgotten they could. She watched Ethan hammer a board into place, his movement strong and sure. She watched the sunlight catch on the dust in the air, making the farm look almost peaceful. Ethan walked toward her, wiping his hands on a cloth. "You look tired," he said gently. "I am," she admitted. "But it's a good kind of tired." He nodded. "That's how it's supposed to feel when you build something worth keeping." Clara smiled softly. "Ethan, I keep thinking about the letter from my father, about how he trusted you, and how you kept that trust all these years. Ethan met her eyes, his expression warm. He helped me when I had nothing. I promised myself I'd help him back even if he never asked. He believed in me. That's rare. Clara felt something shift inside her again, a deep emotion she wasn't ready to name. She looked down at her hands, trying to steady her voice. I'm glad you came, even if it was late. Ethan looked toward the house where the women were still working. I'm glad too. The rest of the day passed with steady progress. They fixed broken furniture, cleared fallen branches, and even discovered old tools buried in a forgotten corner of the barn. The farm began to look like a place worth saving, a place with life and promise. But as the sun began to set, Clara felt her heart tighten. The bank would return in a few days. No matter how much they fixed, debt was debt. The threat was real, and she knew she couldn't count on hope alone. While everyone was eating dinner, Ethan stepped outside quietly. Clara saw him leave and followed him to the porch. He stood there looking at the fields, the sky painted with orange and purple. I've been thinking, he said softly. About what? About the debt, about the farm, about all of you. Clara waited, her heart beating a little faster. I'm going to settle the debt, Ethan said. Tomorrow morning I'll go to town. I'll pay everything your father owed. Clara froze, her breath catching. Ethan, no, that's too much. You worked so hard for that money, you can't just give it away. I'm not giving it away, he replied calmly. I'm investing it in something worth keeping. This farm is worth it, and so are you. And so are the women here who depend on this place. Clara shook her head. But what will you have left? What if you need it? Ethan turned toward her, his eyes gentle. I'll have a place to stay, a purpose, a reason to keep going. That's more than money can ever buy. Clara felt tears gather in her eyes. Not from sadness, but from a deep gratitude she couldn't express. I don't know how to thank you, she whispered. You don't need to, Ethan said softly. Just let me help. The next morning, Ethan rode into town. The women watched him leave with hopeful eyes. Clara stood silently, holding her father's letter close to her chest. She prayed he would return safely. She prayed the bank would finally stop threatening their home. Hours passed slowly. The women tried to work, but their minds were on Ethan. Clara tried to stay calm, but every sound made her heart jump. The young girls kept asking, when will he come back? And Clara could only smile weakly and say, soon, I hope. Near sunset, dust rose on the road. Clara ran to the gate, her heart racing. Ethan approached on his horse, looking tired but calm. As he came closer, he reached into his coat and pulled out a folded set of papers. It's done, he said simply. The debt is cleared. The women gathered around him, cheering, crying, hugging each other. Clara felt her legs weaken, and she placed a hand over her mouth. She couldn't believe it. She wanted to speak, but no words came. Ethan handed her the papers. The farm is safe now. No one can take it. Clara looked at the documents, her vision blurred by tears. Ethan, you saved us. You saved everything. He shook his head gently. All I did was keep a promise. That night, the women prepared a special meal, cooking with joy instead of fear. The house was filled with laughter and relief. Clara couldn't stop smiling. Every time she looked at Ethan, her heart felt lighter. Later, when everyone had gone to bed, Clara stepped outside. The stars shone brightly, and the cool night breeze carried the scent of grass and hope. Ethan joined her quietly. You've given us everything, Clara whispered. I don't know how to repay you. Ethan shook his head. You don't owe me anything. Clara looked at him with soft, shining eyes. Then, stay. Stay with us. This farm, this home, It's better with you in it. Ethan looked at her for a long moment and a gentle smile touched his lips. I'll stay, he said, as long as you need me. Clara felt her heart open in a way she hadn't felt since her father died. She looked at the fields, the house, the women who were now sleeping peacefully. Everything was finally safe. And when she turned back to Ethan, she whispered something she never thought she'd say again. I wasn't left with nothing after all. Ethan nodded, his voice warm. No, you were left with a family, and now you have a future too. And so the farm, once broken and filled with fear, became a place of hope again, a place where 10 women found safety, where a cowboy kept a promise, and where Clara finally found peace in the strength of those who stood beside her.